All right, let's get into this. I want you to picture something for me. A wall. But it's not a physical one, not brick and mortar. It's something.
Well, it's invisible, and frankly, it's a lot more frustrating. Just imagine you're a founder in the UK right now.
Okay.
You've done all the hard stuff. You've got a product that actually works. You have traction. You have customers who are paying you real money. Maybe you've even got a bit of seed funding in the bank. You are, for all intents and purposes, ready to just run.
Right. You're at the starting line.
Exactly. But then you slam into this massive, invisible concrete barrier that's standing right between you and that next stage of growth. And the real kicker, it's not regulation. It's not taxes. It's not even the economy in that, broad sense. It's people.
It is the talent wall.
Yeah.
And, looking at the data we have in front of us for today, it is significantly higher and, frankly, a lot steeper than most people seem to realize. That's it, exactly. We're looking at a situation where the math just isn't mathing anymore for small and medium enterprises, for SMEs.
Yeah.
I was reading this report to prep for today. It was the UK government's 2024 Employer Skills Survey. And there was one number that just sort of jumped off the page and slapped me in the face, 27%.
That is a critical and, to be honest, a pretty terrifying number for the economy.
27% of all vacancies in Britain are now officially classified as skill shortage vacancies. And we need to be really, really specific about what that actually means.
It's a crucial distinction.
It's not that there aren't people applying for the jobs. Your inbox isn't empty. It means that the people who are applying, they literally cannot do the job. They lack the core competency.
Right, and that's the nuance that always gets lost in the big headlines, isn't it? It's not a labor shortage in the sense of just needing warm bodies and seats. It's a competency shortage. And look, if you're a massive corporation, if you're Unilever or a big bank, that's it's annoying.
Just an inconvenience.
It's an inconvenience. You have buffers. You can absorb a bad hire. You can spend 6 months putting someone through your fancy internal training academy. But for an SME, a company of, say, 10 people, that is existential.
That is absolutely the word of the day, existential, because we're seeing this existential math play out in real time. We're seeing a startup with, let's say, £200,000 in annual recurring revenue, which is a decent start, right?
That's a real business. You found product market fit.
You found it. But even with that revenue, you are struggling, really struggling, to afford a single functional hire in London. Just one.
And that is precisely why today's deep dive is so fascinating. We are not just talking about outsourcing in that traditional sense, which, let's be honest, often feels like a bit of a race to the bottom on price.
Right.
We are investigating a very specific and I'd say very sophisticated phenomenon. The source material we're looking at today calls it the Cape Town-London Labor Corridor.
Sounds like a geopolitical thriller, doesn't it? The corridor.
It practically is, but in economic terms. We're looking at a really deep investigative piece. Its title, Why England's SMEs Are Expanding Faster with VAConnect's Distributed Teams, and we've also got some internal documentation, brochures, and web content from VAConnect themselves.
And just to be super clear for everyone listening, that is pronounced VAConnect. And I really want to set the stage here because this isn't your typical, I hired a guy on Fiverr to make a logo for me kind of story. This is about a structural realignment of how British businesses are starting to operate.
Precisely. The whole mission for this deep dive is to unpack how these UK companies are finding a way to bypass that local talent crisis we just talked about. They are leveraging professionals in South Africa, but the key insight here, and if you take absolutely nothing else away from this, take this, is that it is not just about saving money.
Although I have to say, looking at the spreadsheets we have in front of us, the money part is wild.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild, and we will definitely get to that.
Oh, we will. But the core driver here, the real why, is about operational survival and, maybe more importantly, speed. It's about how you can possibly compete when your local talent pool is either dry or, priced out of the stratosphere.
So let's dive right into that why.
Yeah.
We threw out that big 27% stat for skill shortages, but it actually gets worse for the little guys, doesn't it? The data seems to suggest that the pain is not distributed equally across the board.
Not at all. It doesn't affect everyone the same way. The data shows that for the very smallest firms, we're just talking companies with just 2 to 4 employees, which is really the engine room of the British economy, the density of those skill shortage vacancies hits 42%.
Wow. So almost half of the roles they desperately need to fill, they simply cannot find people with the right skills for.
Exactly. And then you layer on this other report from CIMA, that's the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. They released their 2025 Mind the Skills Gap report. And in that, they found that 79% of SME employers identified skills gaps within their current organizations.
So not just in hiring, but with the people they already have.
With the people already on the payroll. And look at what's missing. It's not just super niche things like, I don't know, underwater basket weaving. We are talking about fundamental capabilities. Tech and IT at 38%, AI expertise at 37%, and this is the one that really worries me. Fundamental job performance skills at 36%.
That fundamental job performance one is scary.
Yeah.
That just sounds like being a professional, being able to do a job.
It is. It's things like showing up on time, communicating clearly, taking initiative, executing tasks without needing to be constantly micromanaged. And this scarcity, this drought of skills, it creates what I like to call the salary trap.
The salary trap, though?
You have the skills route, which naturally drives up the price for the little talent that remains. But the national averages you read about, they hide the real story for a founder who's based in a hub. The average UK entry-level salary is around £31,600.
Which, on its face, sounds manageable. If you're running a business, you think, okay, 30 grand, I could probably budget for that.
On paper, yes. But if you are in London or Manchester or Cambridge, any of the major investor networks or tech hubs, the reality is completely different. Entry-level positions there, on average, command nearly £47,000.
£47,000 for an entry-level role. That's a lot of money for someone who is just starting out their career.
And that is just the gross salary. Here is where it gets really interesting and, frankly, quite painful for the business owners listening. We have to talk about the burdened cost, the true cost to the business.
Right, the stuff that isn't on the pay slip.
Exactly. When you add the employer's national insurance contribution at 13.8%, then the mandatory pension obligations at a minimum of 3%, plus all the overhead. You have to buy them a laptop, pay for their Salesforce license, maybe a desk and a WeWork. That entry-level hire is actually costing your business nearly £60,000 a year.
60 grand. For someone who, statistically speaking, based on that earlier data, might not even have the skills you actually need them to have.
Correct. And just think about the risk profile there for a moment. If you are bootstrapped or you're running on really thin margins and you sink £60,000 into a new hire, plus maybe, another $15,000 in recruitment fees if you used an agency.
Which, by the way, you never get back. That money is just gone the second you pay it.
Gone. And then 4 months down the line, they either quit because they're completely overwhelmed, or even worse, you have to fire them because they just can't do the job.
You're toasted. Your whole year's plan is gone.
You have burned cash that you cannot get back. The founder's burnout just accelerates because now you're back to doing that job yourself again. All your growth plans just evaporate. It is a fundamental structural failure in the local market.
It's like you're trying to fill a bucket that has a massive hole in the bottom, and the water you're using costs 60,000 pounds a gallon.
That is a very vivid and painfully accurate analogy. It is simply unsustainable for a small business to operate that way.
So while this crisis was brewing and getting worse in the UK, with founders pulling their hair out and bank accounts draining, there was, it turns out, a solution that was maturing about 9,600 kilometers to the south.
In South Africa.
Specifically, this agency called VAConnect. Now, when I first saw the name, I immediately thought, okay, virtual assistant, someone answer my emails.
Yeah.
It feels a bit 2010.
It's an understandable first reaction.
But digging into their history and reading through their brochure, it seems to be much, much deeper than that.
So much deeper. They actually started way back in 2008 under a different name, Lime Tree Consulting. They rebranded to VAConnect in 2014. So the point is, they have been at this for a very long time. This is not a pandemic pop-up shop that just appeared when everyone went remote.
And the founder, a woman named Karen, the sources describe her as having this really intense passion for systems and processes, which, honestly, is exactly what you want in someone who is running an operations-focused business.
Absolutely. You don't want a visionary artist running your back office. You want someone who is obsessed with process, with compliance, with checklists. And the scale they've achieved is pretty impressive. They've delivered over 250,000 hours of work. They have a core team of over 25 people, and it's growing quickly. But the stat that really stood out to me was their reputation.
The reviews.
Yes. In their entire history of operating, they've only ever had 2 bad reviews. The rest are predominantly 5-star feedback. In the service industry, where clients can be incredibly demanding and subjective, that is almost unheard of.
That is wild. Usually you get a bad review just because someone's having a bad day or their coffee was cold that morning.
Precisely. And I think it speaks directly to their model. It is absolutely crucial for people to understand that VAConnect is not a marketplace. This is probably the biggest misconception we need to clear up.
Right. This is not Upwork. It's not Fiverr. It's not freelancer.com.
No. On those platforms, you are browsing endless profiles. You're taking a gamble on a complete stranger. You are the vetting mechanism. You do all the work. VAConnect is what they call a managed virtual assistant agency. They employ the staff.
So the VAs, as they call them, they actually work for VAConnect. They're on their payroll.
Correct. The client gets a dedicated full-time team member who feels like part of their team, but VAConnect is the one handling all the HR, the payroll, the benefits, the local compliance. Their stated mission is to be a catalyst for entrepreneurs to scale without the HR headaches.
Which, going back to our earlier point about that 60,000-pound risk, that sounds pretty appealing. If VAConnect is the one taking on the employment liability, that massively de-risks the entire thing for the founder, doesn't it?
Exactly. But let's talk numbers, because we promised we'd get into the arbitrage equation.
Let's do it. The source material uses this fantastic term, purchasing power parity arbitrage, which I'll admit sounds like something I would have fallen asleep to in an economics 101 lecture hall. But when you see the actual numbers on a P&L sheet, it wakes you right up.
It really does. So let's break down the comparison that's provided in the investigative article. They look at a very specific, very realistic scenario for an SME. Building a small team that consists of a customer success manager and an admin support person.
Okay. 2 core roles. Absolutely vital for any growing SaaS company or an agency. You need someone to keep your customers happy, and you need someone to keep the paperwork moving so you get paid.
In the UK, a traditional setup for those 2 roles, once you factor in salary, national insurance, pension, comes out to approximately £89,910 per year.
Nearly 90 grand. I mean, that is a massive chunk of change for any startup. That could be your entire marketing budget for the year.
It is. Now let's look at the VAConnect equivalent. They model it out as a senior customer success specialist working 30 hours a week, plus a full-time operations coordinator working 40 hours a week. The total cost for both, approximately £43,680 per year.
Hold on a minute. Just let me process that. You said 43,000 versus nearly 90,000.
That is a total saving of £46,230 per year. It's a 51% reduction.
That is half price.
Yeah.
You're effectively getting a buy one, get one free on your workforce. That's what that number means.
In essence, yes. But here's the why behind it. And this is the economic geography part that's so important. A lot of people hear those numbers, 10 or 12 pounds an hour, and they immediately think, oh, it must be a sweatshop. You're underpaying people.
Right. That's the immediate fear, isn't it? That it's exploitative. And frankly, we don't want to be promoting something that just grinds people down for profit.
But the data, when you look at it, tells a completely different story. And this is where that purchasing power parity concept comes into play. In a city like Cape Town, a local salary of 180,000 rand, that's about 7,500 pounds, provides a solid middle-class lifestyle.
Wait, 180,000 rand is considered middle class?
It is. The cost of living is fundamentally different. Housing, food, transport, it's all priced in rand, not in pounds. But when a South African professional bills at, say, £12 per hour through VAConnect, they are effectively earning roughly 360,000 rand annually. That's about 15,000 pounds in a raw currency conversion, but locally in their economy. That places them firmly in the upper middle income bracket.
So they are earning double the baseline for a middle-class life in their own country.
Exactly. It is high-paying, desirable local work. It just happens to be incredibly cost-effective for a UK business because of the currency exchange. So it's not cheap labor, it's geo-economic arbitrage.
That is such a crucial distinction. You aren't hiring desperate people. You're hiring successful local professionals who are making a great living in their own local context.
And that directly leads to the value proposition for the UK client. Because you are paying that 10 to 12 pound an hour rate, you are not getting a junior. In the UK, for £35,000, you might get a fresh graduate with 0 real-world experience who needs you to teach them how to write a professional email.
Right.
Through VAConnect, that same rate gets you a mid-career professional, someone with 3 to 7 years of actual experience under their belt.
So you're getting someone who actually knows how to use Salesforce without you having to send them on a training course.
You're getting someone who can probably build the CRM architecture for you, not just enter data into it. Someone who can manage a project, not just tick boxes on a list you gave them.
Okay, so we've established the cost benefit. It is massive. It's undeniable. But I have to ask the really obvious question here. Why South Africa? Why not India or the Philippines? I mean, for decades, those have been the undisputed titans of outsourcing. If I just want cheap labor, my mind usually goes east. Why is this Cape Town-London corridor so special?
That is the traditional playbook, you're right.
Mm.
But the source material we looked at outlines 3 very specific, very powerful advantages that South Africa holds over those locations. They call them the 3 S's: synchronicity, standards, and speech.
Okay, let's break those down. Let's start with synchronicity.
This is, and I'm not exaggerating, the killer app. It's the time zone. South Africa is on GMT +2.
Which is, for London, that's only a 2-hour difference, right?
Exactly. And during daylight savings, it shifts, but essentially you have near perfect overlap of the working day. Now, compare that to Manila. Manila is GMT +8.
So if I'm in London and I want to have an important team meeting at 3 p.m. my time,
In Manila, that is 11 o'clock at night. Your team is exhausted. They are literally working the graveyard shift. They are separated from their families at night. It's biologically and socially very, very difficult.
and what about somewhere like Buenos Aires?
GMT -3. So it's reversed. You lose the entire morning of collaboration. But with Cape Town, you can have a 3 p.m. strategy meeting, and everyone is awake, they're alert, and they're working normal business hours. It allows for genuine, real-time collaboration.
That is huge. I've worked with teams where you send an email and then you have to wait a full 24 hours for a reply just because of the time difference. It absolutely kills momentum. It turns a simple 5-minute conversation into a 3-day email saga.
It completely destroys agility. And for an SME, agility is everything. You cannot afford that kind of lag time.
Okay, so that's synchronicity. That makes perfect sense. What about this second S, standards?
This refers to cultural fluency, or what the source material fascinatingly calls the Commonwealth mindset.
The Commonwealth mindset. That's a very interesting way of phrasing it.
It is. It refers to the fact that South African business culture is heavily derived from British frameworks. Their legal systems, their educational systems, their banking systems. They all have roots in the British model, so they intuitively understand the nuance of how British business works.
Can you give me a specific example of that kind of nuance?
Sure. Think about British understatement. If a British client sends an email back and says a piece of work is quite good, what do they actually mean by that?
They mean it's mediocre. Or maybe even that it's bad. It means you need to try again.
Exactly. In some other cultures, quite good might be translated literally and taken to mean very good. But a South African professional understands that code. They know that quite good is polite British for we need to fix this. They get the sarcasm. They get the dry humor.
That is so subtle, but it's so important. It prevents those awkward and potentially costly miscommunications.
It is. And it also extends to a sense of professionalism. The sources note that, unlike some more hierarchical Asian BPO cultures, where staff might be trained to wait for explicit instructions before moving a muscle, South Africans are noted for being proactive. One of the reviews in the source material described it as COO-level thinking. They don't just wait for a task list, they see a problem and they try to solve it.
That is the absolute dream for a founder, isn't it? You don't want a robot, you want a partner in the business.
Precisely. And that brings us to the third S, which is speech.
The language.
English is an indigenous language in South Africa. It's not just a learned business language for them. For many, it's their primary language. This means you have virtually no accent barriers and a deep, intuitive familiarity with British spelling and professional etiquette.
So no awkward moments where you have to explain that the word color has a U in it in the UK.
Sure. Or that you start a formal email with dear and you end it with kind regards. The stats we have here back this up too. The South African BPO sector has an 18% higher customer satisfaction rating than its Asian alternatives.
18% is a significant number when you're talking about client-facing roles. That's not a rounding error.
It's the difference between keeping a client for life and losing one over a frustrating phone call. If your customer service rep is frustrating your customer because of a language or cultural barrier, you are actively losing revenue.
This brings me to a point I really want to drill down on because the name virtual assistant, it often gets a bad rap, doesn't it? It conjures up this image of someone who just manages your Google Calendar and books your dentist appointments.
That is a very common misconception. And frankly, it's a really outdated view of what these distributed teams are actually capable of doing now.
Right, because when you look at VAConnect's own service list, this is not just admin support. Not by a long shot.
Not at all. We are talking about a total operational redesign. They list roles in marketing people doing SEO, content creation, paid media management. We're talking about professionals who are managing 80,000-pound ad spends for their clients.
That is a serious level of responsibility. You
Yeah.
don't just hand the company credit card and your ad account to a random freelancer you found online.
You absolutely do not. They also list sales roles, people managing the full sales pipeline, building out the CRM architecture. They have developers, full stack engineers who are doing complex API integrations. They have project managers who are coordinating entire distributed teams.
There was a case study in the source material about a Manchester agency that really just blew my mind. Can we talk about that one for a second?
Yes, this is a perfect example of what we mean by operational redesign. So you have this digital marketing agency based in Manchester, and they were stuck, completely capped out at 8 clients. The founder was personally working 65 hours a week.
Ah, the classic founder bottleneck. The founder is doing everything so the business itself cannot grow beyond them.
That's exactly it. So they restructured their entire delivery team using a 6-person team from VAConnect based in Cape Town. But, and this is the important part, they didn't just hire admin support. They hired content strategists, paid media specialists, and graphic designers, core delivery roles.
And what was the result?
They increased their client capacity from 8 to 19 accounts in a year. Their profit margins improved from 22% to 34%, and the founder. They reduced their working hours from 65 down to a manageable 42 per week.
So let me get this straight. They more than doubled their business, they massively increased their profit margin, and the founder actually got their life back.
That is the power of this model when it's done right. It wasn't just outsourcing a few tasks. It was about building a core, scalable delivery engine in Cape Town while keeping the high-level strategy and client relationships in Manchester.
And VAConnect actually has specific departments for this, right? It's
Yeah.
not just a general pool of people where you pick a name out of a hat.
That's right. Their own brochure highlights these specialized internal departments. They have sales assistants or SDRs, they have executive assistants, EAs, they have software engineers, and they have project managers. They hire and train specifically for these complex verticals.
So if I go to them and I say, I need a developer, I'm actually getting a developer, not just a generalist who happened to take a coding class once.
Exactly. You get a specialist who's been vetted for that role.
Okay, now I have to play devil's advocate for a moment here.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't I just go to a platform like Upwork? I can probably find people on there for, what, £6 an hour? Why should I pay VConnect 10 or 12?
That is the classic structural risk versus managed accountability debate. It's a great question.
Okay, break that down for me.
Upwork is purely transactional. You are the HR manager. You have to write the job host. You have to sift through 50, maybe 100 proposals. You do the interviews. You do the hiring. And then what happens if that person quits on you 3 weeks later with no notice?
I'm right back to square one. All that work for nothing.
You are. And all the knowledge they gained about your business, all the onboarding you did, it just walks out the door with them. The cognitive load on the founder is absolutely massive. VAConnect, on the other hand, uses a managed model.
Which means what in practice?
It means they do all of that vetting for you, and their vetting is incredibly rigorous. They're screening not just for education and hard skills, but critically for culture fit. But the real value, I think, is the continuity they provide. If a VA that's assigned to you leaves for any reason, the agency handles the replacement.
So I don't have to go back to the job boards and start the whole painful process again.
No. They typically replace the person within 5 to 7 business days. And because they oversee the work and have their own systems, they handle the knowledge transfer. You don't lose the brain of that part of your operation.
That's huge. It's like having operational insurance.
It is operational insurance. They have this phrase in their brochure that I think sums it up perfectly. Small enough to care, big enough to guarantee quality and stability. And they actually back that promise up with continuous training.
This is where that VA varsity thing comes in, right? And that's pronounced VA varsity.
Yes, exactly. It's their own internal Udemy-like training platform. They don't just hire people and then set them loose on clients. They are constantly upskilling them.
But why does a recruitment or an agency need its own university? It seems like a lot of overhead.
Because VAConnect is effectively the employer of record. They have a vested interest in the long-term career growth and performance of that individual. So VA Varsity isn't just a nice perk for the employee, it's a quality control mechanism for the client. The source material mentions they upskill their staff in crucial industry-specific soft skill needs.
That's a fascinating way to put it. It's not just, here's how to use Excel.
No, it's things like how to manage a difficult stakeholder or how to prioritize conflicting deadlines from a busy client. It's the soft skills that actually make someone truly valuable in a remote team environment.
And they have these culture programs, too. I saw one called Atomic Energy.
I loved this part. Atomic Energy is their internal wellness program. They bring in dietitians, mental mobility coaches, and then they have the two-way happiness program, which is designed to actively manage the satisfaction of both the client and the remote worker.
That's incredibly smart, because if the remote worker is miserable or burned out, the quality of the work is going to suffer.
Inevitably. And they have a talent discovery program that's committed to retaining their top talent. So the entire model is a retention engine, whereas a marketplace like Upwork is often, by its very nature, a churn engine.
So you're paying a small premium, £12 an hour versus maybe $6. But what you're really buying is stability, quality control, and the removal of churn.
You are buying the removal of all those HR headaches, and for a time-strapped founder, that is worth far, far more than £6 an hour.
Okay, we have to address the elephant in the room, though.
AI.
The AI paradox. Yes, every single time I open LinkedIn, there's another guru telling me that AI is going to replace all knowledge workers. Why should I hire anyone, whether they're in London or Cape Town, when I can just get ChatGPT to do the job for free?
This is a really fascinating part of the investigative article. It argues that the AI-only narrative is actually failing SMEs right now.
How so? In what way?
Because AI, in its current form, excels at execution, but it consistently fails at judgment.
Okay, give me a practical example of that.
All right. AI can write you 10 prospecting emails in 30 seconds. It's brilliant at that. But can it judge the specific, nuanced tone that's needed for a sensitive, high-value client who you think is about to churn? Can it read the room in an email chain?
Probably not. It might sound way too robotic or maybe too cheerful when the client is clearly angry about something.
Exactly. AI just doesn't understand the relational context of business. So the model that VAConnect is pioneering is what they refer to as AI-augmented professionals.
So human plus AI. The Centaur model.
Yes. They aren't hiring people to sit there and type emails from scratch anymore. They are hiring smart humans who know how to use AI tools to get 2 or 3 times the productivity of a normal person.
So the VA uses something like ChatGPT to get the first draft done in seconds, but then they apply their human experience and judgment to add the polish, the strategy, the brand voice.
Correct. The source material puts it perfectly. It's not hire UK versus use AI. It is hire AI-equipped South Africans. You get the incredible speed and efficiency of AI, but you get the crucial judgment of an experienced human, all at a cost that makes sense for an SME's balance sheet.
That feels like the real sweet spot, doesn't it? You are not trying to fight the technology. You're leveraging it through a cost-effective, intelligent human layer.
It is the only model that truly scales for most businesses right now. Pure AI is still too brittle and makes too many mistakes. Pure UK humans are, as we've established, too expensive. This middle path is where the smart companies are winning.
So let's look forward a bit. The source material had this 36-month forecast section. I love a good prediction model. What does this kind of structural change actually look like for a company's future financials?
This is the 36-month scaling horizon model. They ran the numbers for a typical company growing from £500,000 to £2 million in annual recurring revenue.
The classic and very difficult scale-up journey.
Right. And if you attempt to do that with traditional scaling, so hiring UK-based full-time employees, it costs you roughly £450,000 in hiring and salary costs over those 3 years. Your cost-to-revenue ratio is hovering around 30%.
Okay. And what about with the distributed model?
With a VAConnect-powered team, the hiring costs are around £275,000. Your cost-to-revenue ratio drops to 18.3%.
That is a massive, massive difference in efficiency.
It is £175,000 in pure capital that you have saved. That's money you can now put back into product development, into your marketing budget, or just keep in the bank for a rainy day.
Or it means you don't have to dilute your equity as much in your next funding round because you simply don't need to raise as much capital to grow.
Exactly. But the biggest benefit might not even be the cash itself. It's what the source calls founder optionality.
Explain that. Founder optionality. I like the sound of it.
In the UK, when you hire someone, it's a fixed cost. Redundancy laws make it very difficult and expensive to downsize if you have to. It's like a marriage. You are locked in.
Right. It's a huge commitment.
With VAConnect, it's a variable cost. You can scale your team up or down with just 30 days notice.
So if the market suddenly crashes or you lose a huge client,
You can cut your burn rate by 40% in a single month without any messy legal battles. The source material specifically mentions that this flexibility helped a lot of their clients survive the big tech funding drought of 2023. They had options when other companies were locked into huge salary bills.
that is a genuine superpower for a startup. The ability to just toggle your single biggest cost, your payroll, up and down like a thermostat.
It turns what is normally a fixed liability into a variable strategic lever. That is the definition of strategic flexibility.
I just want to circle back to the specific roles again for a second, because I think a lot of listeners might be trying to picture exactly where this fits into their own business. Let's talk about the sales assistants.
Yes, the brochure mentions SDRs, sales development representatives.
Sales is usually seen as something you have to keep really close to your chest, isn't it? Founders often have this mindset of, nobody can sell my product like I can.
That is the classic founder's trap. Nobody is as passionate about this as I am. And you know what? That's probably true. But is the founder's time, at their very high hourly rate, best spent cold emailing 500 prospects from a list?
Definitely not. I mean, speaking for myself, I hate cold emailing.
The VAConnect model for sales assistants focuses on the top of the funnel, all that outbound prospecting, lead qualification, cleaning up the data in the CRM,
The grunt work, basically.
the necessary grind. So if you have a talented SDR in South Africa doing all that outreach, finding the qualified leads, warming them up, and then they just hand the pre-qualified interested meeting to the UK-based founder to close.
That is pure efficiency.
You are leveraging the founder's time for only the highest value activity, which is actually closing the deal, and you're outsourcing the high volume activity prospecting to a cost-effective expert.
And again, the time zone is the magic ingredient there. If they are calling UK prospects, they're calling them during UK working hours.
Exactly. An SDR who's based in Manila has to work the night shift to call someone in London at 11 a.m. They're going to be tired. An SDR in Cape Town is working their normal 9 to 5. Who do you think is going to sound fresher and more energetic on that crucial first phone call?
The person who actually slept last night.
Exactly. It matters. Sales is fundamentally about an energy transfer. If your SDR sounds exhausted, your conversion rate is going to drop. It's that simple.
What about the developer angle? The brochure makes a point of mentioning software engineers.
This is a really interesting one. There's a line in the brochure that asks, why limit your search for the best dedicated developers to just your zip code?
Very valid point. The UK has a massive, well-documented shortage of good developers.
And developer salaries, particularly in London, are just astronomical. We are talking 70, 80, even 100,000 pounds for a decent mid-level talent.
And they get poached by another company every 6 months for a pay rise.
The turnover is absolutely brutal. So VAConnect offers access to world-class programmers, engineers, and coders. And at the end of the day, code is a universal language. Python is Python, whether you're writing it in London or in Cape Town.
But the integration is key, isn't it? How do they fit into a UK-based dev team? Does that work?
That goes right back to that Commonwealth mindset and the shared culture we talked about. They are used to working in similar agile frameworks. They use Jira, Slack, GitHub. The entire tech stack and the tooling are identical.
So the friction of bringing them onto a team is minimal.
It is designed to be plug and play.
I want to speculate a little bit here, looking at the bigger picture. We are seeing this Cape Town-London corridor strengthen. What does this mean in, say, 5 years? Does a city like London just become a city of headquarters and sales offices with all the actual work happening elsewhere?
That is a very provocative thought. And if you follow the trend lines, we might see a kind of bifurcation of roles. The high-touch, high-stakes, face-to-face roles will remain in London. Strategic leadership, big-ticket sales, investor relations, that stays in London. But the engine room of the company, the operations, the development, the admin, the marketing execution, a lot of that moves to these efficient, aligned corridors.
It's almost like what happened with manufacturing decades ago. But now it's happening with knowledge work.
Yes, but with one critical difference. When manufacturing moved, it often just went to the lowest bidder, sometimes regardless of quality. This move to South Africa seems to be driven by a quest for aligned quality. It's not just a race to the bottom on price, it's a race to value and efficiency.
Because if it was just a pure race to the bottom, they'd be going to other cheaper jurisdictions than South Africa.
Correct. There are definitely cheaper places to hire people, but they are not necessarily better places when it comes to UK business alignment.
That seems to be the sweet spot that VAConnect has found and is building their entire business on.
It is the Goldilocks zone. Cost-effective enough to make a huge difference, but culturally and professionally aligned enough to ensure high quality.
I also noticed in the source material that they make a big deal about executive assistants.
Yes, there's a line that says, if you're feeling stressed at work with too many meeting requests, it's time to hire your own executive assistant.
I feel personally attacked by that sentence. My calendar is an absolute disaster zone.
I think we all feel that. But the EA role is interesting because it requires an incredibly high level of trust. You are letting someone into your inbox, into your calendar.
Into your personal life, potentially.
Yes. And traditionally, people always wanted their EA sitting right outside their office door.
Get me a coffee, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But in a post-Zoom, post-pandemic world, does your EA really need to be physically present, or do they just need to be digitally present and highly competent?
If they're managing my digital calendar and my digital email, then theoretically they can be anywhere in the world.
And a Cape Town-based EA understands the geography. They know that you can't book a founder a meeting in Shoreditch immediately followed by one in Kensington 10 minutes later. They understand the context of UK life.
That cultural fluency, again, just seems to underpin everything.
It's the foundation that makes the whole model work.
One thing we haven't touched on is the actual onboarding process. The VAConnect brochure breaks it down into a few simple steps.
Yes. Step 1 is strategy first. It's basically a Zoom meeting to discuss your needs and see if it's a good fit.
The step 2 is matching.
Based on your needs, but also someone who will fit your work culture. They really emphasize that point. They say, we are strong on culture.
And then step 3 is just meet and start.
It sounds incredibly simple, but now compare that to the traditional hiring process in the UK. Step 1, spend a day writing a job description. Step 2, pay £500 to post it on LinkedIn. Step 3, read through 100 terrible CVs. Step 4, do first-round interviews with 10 people. Step 5, do second-round interviews. Step 6, make an offer. Step 7, wait out their 3-month notice period at their old job.
Oh God, the notice period. I completely forgot about the 3-month notice period.
In the UK, any good senior hire will have a 3-month notice period. So you decide you need to hire someone today, and you finally get them to start in, May, June?
And with VAConnect, what's the timeline?
7 to 14 days.
That speed difference is just insane. In 3 months, the business problem you were trying to solve might have changed completely.
Or it might have killed your business. Speed is a competitive advantage. The ability to deploy talent now versus next quarter is a game changer.
It really makes you challenge the definition of a company, doesn't it? Is a company just the people you employ directly on your payroll? Or is it the entire ecosystem of talent that you can orchestrate?
That is the modern definition of a company, the orchestrator model. The founder's job is to conduct the orchestra, but the musicians don't all have to live in the founder's house.
I like that analogy. VAConnect is providing the entire string section.
And the percussion. And the brass section.
Okay, just to play devil's advocate one last time. What are the potential risks? What if the internet goes down in Cape Town? I've heard they have infrastructure issues.
That is a fair and important question. South Africa does have infrastructure challenges. They have something called load shedding, which is basically scheduled power cuts.
Right, I have heard of that.
But any professional BPO outfit like VAConnect has built-in redundancy for this. We're talking industrial-grade backups, generators, uninterruptible power supplies, redundant fiber internet connections. The source material emphasizes that they are a managed agency. Part of what you're paying for in that management fee is infrastructure assurance.
So they are the ones who have to worry about the power, which means you, the client, don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. If you go and hire a random freelancer who's working from their bedroom in Cape Town, then yes, load shedding is your problem. If you hire through VAConnect, it's their problem. And it's a problem they have already solved at scale.
So that's another hidden value of the managed model. You're buying infrastructure resilience.
Absolutely. It's all part of the package.
So we have a really clear picture here. It's a convergence of factors. You've got sky-high costs in the UK, a genuine talent drought, and a mature, culturally aligned, cost-effective solution that has emerged in South Africa.
It's the perfect storm, but in a positive sense for the businesses that spot the opportunity.
And VAConnect seems to be sitting right at the eye of that storm.
They are the facilitators of the corridor. They've built the bridge.
It really does make you wonder why every SME in the UK isn't doing this already.
Well, as we've discussed, I think awareness is still lagging behind the reality of what's possible. But looking at their growth stats, 250,000 hours delivered, the secret is clearly getting out.
Small enough to care, big enough to guarantee quality and stability. It's a really good tagline, actually.
It perfectly sums up the specific need of an SME, doesn't it? You don't want a faceless giant corporation where you're just a number, but you also can't afford the risk of a flaky freelancer who might disappear. You need that stable middle ground.
The Goldilocks zone.
Indeed.
Well, this has been a real eye-opener for me. It's not just a conversation about hiring. It's about economics, it's about geography, and it's about the future of how we build companies.
It is the future of work, and it's happening right now on the same time zone.
On the same time zone. I love that.
It's the key to the whole thing.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. I just want to quickly recap some of those numbers because they're just so stark. We had the burden cost of a single UK hire at nearly £60,000.
And for the two-person team, the comparison was even bigger. Nearly £90,000 for the UK team versus $43,000 for the VAConnect team.
Right, for the team. It is literally half price.
And you have to remember that 36-month forecast, a saving of £175,000 over 3 years for a typical scaling company.
That is a Series A funding round for some companies. That's life or death capital.
It is hugely significant capital.
And then there was that 18% higher customer satisfaction stat for South African teams.
Don't ignore the quality metric. It's cheaper, it's faster, and it's better. That is the trifecta. Usually in business, you're told you can only ever pick 2 of those.
Right, good. Fast, cheap, pick any 2.
The South African arbitrage seems to allow you to pick all 3. That is the economic anomaly that makes this so powerful.
That is the aha moment. The arbitrage is what breaks the pick 2 rule.
Because of the purchasing power parity. That is the magic variable in the equation.
Absolutely fascinating stuff. I feel like I need to go and audit my own team structure now after this conversation.
I think we all should.
Before we sign off, do you have any final advice for a founder who is listening to this and is maybe sitting on the fence, feeling a bit nervous about it?
I would say this. Test it. The inherent beauty of this flexible model is that you don't have to fire your whole UK team and move your entire operation to Cape Town tomorrow.
Just dip a toe in the water?
Exactly. Hire one person for one role. A sales assistant, a marketing specialist, a social media manager. See how the culture fit works for you. See if the time zone alignment is as powerful as we say it is.
A low-risk experiment.
It's a very low-risk experiment. And if it works, then you suddenly have a scaling lever in your business that most of your competitors simply do not have.
And if it doesn't work for some reason?
You give 30 days notice, and you've learned a valuable lesson for a very small cost.
It seems like a very smart bet to make.
It is the definition of an asymmetric bet, which is what smart founders are always looking for.
Asymmetric bet. I like that. The potential upside is huge, and the potential downside is capped and very small.
Exactly.
Well, I think that is a perfect place to wrap it up. We've gone deep on the crisis, the solution, the numbers, and the long-term strategy.
It's been a pleasure unpacking it all.
Thanks to everyone for listening to this deep dive into the Cape Town-London corridor and the work that companies like VAConnect are doing. It is a brave new world of work out there.
Indeed it is.
Make sure you're exploring all your options. Don't let geography limit your ambition.
Or your growth.
Or your growth. We'll see you on the next one.